Get Out, an American horror film written and directed by Jordan Peele, was a box office hit in 2017 that recently made waves again because the film will compete as a comedy at the next Golden Globes.
Get Out critiques white supremacy, racism, and racialized sexism, so people have criticized the decision and started debates over what counts as comedy.
Let's talk about comedy. What do we laugh at? What do we find funny?
It turns out that comedies often use jokes about gender.
But what is gender?
Gender is an everyday and ongoing activity that humans do. We do gender all the time while interacting with other people.
Look at the fun bags on that horsehound.
Doing gender is a product of social interaction, which means that gender is socially constructed.
Gender is not something you have, it's something you do. Performativity describes the repeated acts that go into doing gender.
Gender is a social construction used in comedy films in ways that teach people about gender roles and norms.
We learn how to do gender by watching other people, copying them, and judging ourselves. Doing gender introduces differences between people that are not natural but socially constructed.
That means we can learn how to do gender even by watching comedies. We should pay attention to how comedies teach us about gender while using an intersectional approach.
Intersectionality allows us to realize how multiple axes of inequality contribute to the marginalization of certain communities.
Do they know I'm black?
Should they?
How we currently do gender in America creates the belief that only two opposite genders exist, that only sexual attraction between those two genders is acceptable, and that gender indicates biological sex.
How you doing, babe?
These beliefs perpetuate sexism, cissexism, and heteronormativity, which marginalizes queer and trans communities.
Dominant understandings of gender are reproduced in comedies, making gender differences seem normal and natural.
This is called gender essentialism. Gender theorists challenge essentialism by demonstrating how gender is an ongoing process that interacts with race, class, sexuality, age, and ability.
Oh boy.
Sexual tension, male-female dynamics, all part of the high school experience.
Let's look at the relationship between gender and sexuality. We use gender to gender bodies and determine who is feminine and who is masculine.
You're doing it, aren't you? You're just shitting in the street. Ready?
Once those bodies are gendered, we use sexuality to determine what those bodies do in terms of sexual desires and behaviors. Sexuality shapes our understanding of gender, and gender our understanding of sexuality.
I hate you! Stop smiling, you jerk!
The mainstream idea that gender and sexuality are distinct categories disrupts an intersectional approach to understanding human identity.
Because people can see physiological differences between certain bodies, they tend to overemphasize those differences by constructing categories that separate those bodies.
Even American schools reinforce the gender system by gendering the bodies of children as early as preschool. This hidden curriculum reproduces gender inequality.
Beliefs about gender shape the ways in which certain bodies are treated by placing emphasis on the role of motherhood and putting responsibility on women when it comes to child rearing.
Gendered and racial constructions of reproductive labor have relegated women, and especially women of color, to doing reproductive labor in the United States.
I wouldn't know. I only see the kitchen and the laundry room and the ceiling in my bedroom. Sometimes the floor.
Even though the United States maintains the cultural belief that women and men should have equal rights and opportunities, our social institutions lag far behind other countries in terms of gender equality.
One of the most enduring cultural beliefs in America is that girls and women should not desire or have sex, and that boys and men should always desire and have lots of sex.
All the gunfights, all the car chases, all the sex we don't want to have with women, but we have to.
This is called the sexual double standard, which is a prevalent theme found in films marketed as comedies.
So this is what we laugh at, but if we want to build a world that is less repressive and more liberated, we need to understand how even things like comedies teach us about gender.
Comedies send messages about how to do gender, including what to wear, how to look, and how to act, in order to be socially acceptable and desirable.
By learning how comedies influence our beliefs and ideas, we can get a better understanding of how gender is socially constructed.
We can imagine a better world and create a society built on gender equality.
I have a feeling we should kiss.
I sometimes have a feeling I can do crystal meth, but then I think, better not.